Hey Yankees fans, welcome to Yankees Rumors and News, your go-to spot for the latest buzz and updates about our team. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a scoop. If you've been following the New York Yankees closely, you can almost feel this strange tension building around the organization. Like a slow burn that's about to explode into a full-blown debate. Because everything they're doing right now seems to point back to one name that once symbolized hope, hype, and the future of the franchise, Jasson Dominguez, the kid once known as the Martian, the prospect who was supposed to land in the Bronx like something not quite human, something otherworldly, and instead has become a walking question mark hovering over every roster decision, every rumor, every whisper coming out of the front office. When Dominguez launched a home run off Justin Verlander in his very first major league at-bat back in 2023, it felt like destiny. Like a Hollywood script being written in real time, and Yankee fans immediately convinced themselves that the next generational star had arrived, that this was the player who would carry the torch into the next era of championships. But baseball has a cruel way of slowing down the hype train, and injuries quickly stepped in to rewrite that story before it even had time to breathe. Dominguez lost significant development time across his first 2 seasons, and when he finally started to show some consistency with the bat, the results were solid but far from spectacular. The kind of production that leaves fans shrugging instead of jumping out of their seats. A batting line hovering around the mid to hundreds with on-base skills that were decent, but not eye-popping, paired with limited power output, just did not match the superstar expectations that once followed him everywhere against left-handed pitching. The struggles were even more pronounced, turning every at-bat into a visible grind. And suddenly the narrative began to shift from future cornerstone to potential roster problem. The Yankees are not a patient fan base, and the organization itself has never been known for waiting quietly while a young player figures things out. Especially when the spotlight is as bright as it is in New York. What really poured gasoline on the fire, though, was not just the bat, but the glove. For a player whose speed is undeniable, who can swipe bases and put pressure on defenses the moment he reaches first, Dominguez has looked surprisingly uncomfortable in left field, almost unsure of his reads and routes, turning what should be routine plays into adventures. Advanced defensive metrics painted an ugly picture last season, showing him costing the team runs rather than saving them. And that lack of trust from the coaching staff became painfully obvious when October arrived and Dominguez found himself glued to the bench, reduced to a single postseason appearance as a pinch hitter, watching the biggest games of the year instead of playing in them. For a player once marketed as untouchable, that moment felt symbolic, like the Yankees quietly admitting they no longer knew what to do with him. Now add in the context of a roster already heavy with left-handed bats, a front office reportedly searching for a right-handed outfielder, and another highly touted lefty prospect knocking on the door, and you start to see why trade rumors around Dominguez refuse to die. The idea that his role in the Bronx is shrinking feels less like speculation and more like an uncomfortable reality. But here's where things get dangerous for the Yankees, because moving on from a player like Dominguez right now carries the risk of becoming one of those decisions fans talk about for decades. The classic case of selling low on talent that simply needed time. He is still barely into his early 20s, with fewer than 600 career plate appearances, which in baseball terms is barely enough data to make firm conclusions, and yet the pressure to make a call feels enormous. The proposed alternatives do not exactly inspire confidence either. Veteran outfielders with limited ceilings and plenty of miles on their legs might offer short-term stability, but they do not offer the kind of upside that wins championships or defines eras. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, Dominguez's underlying numbers hint at something more. Bat speed that ranks well above league average, a hard hit rate that suggests real power potential waiting to be unlocked, and the kind of raw tools that scouts drooled over when he was a teenager. If he can tighten his approach, improve his contact rate, and refine his launch angles, the payoff could be massive. And the Yankees know this, which is why the idea of trading him feels less like a solution and more like a gamble with terrifying downside. What makes this entire situation even more fascinating is that it's happening alongside a renewed focus on pitching development within the organization, an area where the Yankees desperately need wins, while fans argue about Dominguez. There is a quiet but important storyline developing in the farm system, where a trio of young arms is being watched closely as potential future contributors. These pitchers are not household names, yet, but the organization views this season as a critical proving ground. A chance to see who can take the next step and who might eventually anchor a rotation or a bullpen in the big leagues. Pitching depth has become a survival skill in modern baseball, and the Yankees are fully aware that their margin for error is slim. One of these arms is Bryce Cunningham, a right-hander whose development was slowed by injuries, limiting his workload, but not his intrigue. His changeup has drawn praise as a legitimate weapon, especially when paired with a fastball that plays up because of its movement. But control remains the big question mark. Walks piled up faster than the Yankees would like, and while the strikeouts show promise, the efficiency is not quite there yet. Cunningham represents that classic high-risk, high-reward profile. A pitcher who could take a leap forward with refinement or stall out if the command never fully comes together. Then there is Ben Hess, a power pitcher whose fastball can reach absurd velocities and whose delivery gives hitters uncomfortable looks. The organization clearly believes in him, drafting him early and investing heavily in his development. His combination of raw stuff and unusual arm angle makes him the kind of pitcher who can dominate when everything clicks, and among this group, he feels like the most immediate threat to break out and force his way into top prospect conversations. The ceiling is enticing, and if he can stay healthy and consistent, he could become a real weapon. Finally, there is Henry Lalane, a towering presence on the mound whose physical tools are impossible to ignore. Injury slowed him down as well, but when you talk about upside, his name keeps coming up. With the potential for multiple plus pitches and a fastball that can reach elite speeds, Lalane embodies the boom or bust archetype. The pitcher who could either flame out or evolve into something truly special for the Yankees. Even one success story out of this group would be a massive win. And this is where everything circles back to Jasson Dominguez. Because the Yankees are at a crossroads as an organization, they can choose patience, trusting that raw talent plus time can still pay off, or they can choose urgency, reshaping the roster in search of immediate balance and reliability. History has not always been kind to their development decisions. And that's what makes the Dominguez situation so compelling and so dangerous. If they trade him now and he blossoms elsewhere, it will be a scar that never fully heals. If they keep him and he never figures it out, critics will say the warning signs were obvious all along. Right now, the Yankees are walking a tightrope, and every move they make suggests that a defining mistake or a defining act of patience may be just around the corner. If you're enjoying the updates, drop a like and let us know in the comments your thoughts on this rumor. Stop everything for a moment, because the baseball world is buzzing in a way that feels unreal. The kind of whisper that starts quietly in clubhouses and explodes across timelines. And today, the name at the center of that storm is Fernando Tatis Jr., linked to the New York Yankees. A connection so explosive that it feels like it could bend the axis of the sport itself. And before anyone rushes to confirm or deny, the atmosphere right now is pure speculation, pure rumor. The kind that makes fans lean closer to the screen and say, wait a second, what if this is actually happening? When you hear a name like Tatis Jr. floating next to the Yankees brand, it hits different. Because we are not talking about just another star. We are talking about a player who represents swagger, electricity, controversy, redemption, and raw talent all wrapped into one. And when that kind of profile is even whispered in the same breath as the most powerful franchise in baseball, it creates a narrative that almost writes itself. And that is why people inside the game are murmuring that something big might be cooking behind closed doors, something that could reshape not just the roster, but the balance of power across the league. The Yankees are a franchise that thrives on seismic moves, on moments that feel historic the second they happen. And there is a sense among insiders that the front office has been quietly dissatisfied, restless, searching for that next jolt of energy that can redefine the identity of the team. And in that context, the idea of Tatis Jr. in pinstripes starts to feel less like fantasy and more like a daring gamble that only a team with endless ambition would even consider, especially when you factor in the marketing power, the global reach, and the sheer spectacle of putting one of the most polarizing superstars in baseball on the biggest stage imaginable. From the Padres side, the whispers are just as intriguing, because there is a growing belief that the organization might be at a crossroads, weighing long-term stability against the allure of reshaping their future. And when a player carries a contract, a reputation, and expectations as massive as Tatis Jr., every internal discussion becomes heavier, more complex. And some around the league are suggesting that San Diego could be listening, not actively shopping, but listening, which in baseball terms is often the first crack in the door before something wild happens. What makes this rumor feel even hotter is the Yankees' current hunger for star power. That goes beyond just numbers on a stat sheet. They want someone who sells jerseys, fills seats, dominates headlines, and brings an edge that can intimidate opponents before the first pitch is even thrown. And Tatis Jr. checks every one of those boxes. Because love him or hate him, nobody ignores him. And that kind of presence in New York would be magnified tenfold, turning every at-bat into an event and every road game into a circus. There is also the human drama angle that cannot be ignored. Because New York is not a forgiving market, it is a crucible. And some are wondering whether the bright lights of the Bronx would either polish Tatis Jr. into a legend or expose every flaw under a microscope. And that question alone is fueling endless debate among fans and analysts who are split between those who see this as the ultimate redemption arc and those who fear it could become an unstoppable media storm if things go sideways. Behind the scenes, the financial gymnastics required for such a move are part of the mystery that keeps this rumor alive, because the Yankees have the resources, the prospect depth, and the willingness to absorb risk when they believe the payoff could be monumental. And there is chatter that the framework of a deal, purely hypothetical of course, would involve a package so massive that it would be debated for years. The kind of trade people argue about in bars and podcasts long after the dust settles. What really sends chills through the fan base is imagining the lineup, the swagger, the sense that the Yankees would once again become the epicenter of baseball conversation. Not just because of tradition, but because of audacity. And the idea of Tatis Jr. wearing those iconic stripes, flipping his hair under the stadium lights, unleashing his talent on the biggest stage, feels like something straight out of a blockbuster script rather than a simple roster move. As of now, everything remains in the realm of speculation, the kind that thrives on silence from official sources and knowing smiles from people who refuse to comment. And that silence is exactly what keeps the fire burning, because in this sport, when nobody is denying anything loudly, fans start to believe that something is brewing, something that could drop at any moment and send shockwaves through the league. So for now, all anyone can do is watch, listen, and imagine. Because if this rumor ever crosses the line into reality, it would not just be another transaction. It would be a moment that redefines eras, rewrites expectations, and reminds everyone why baseball, with all its drama and unpredictability, still has the power to make the entire sports world stop and hold its breath. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you stay up to date with every Yankees rumor and news. See you in the next video.